We start this week, of course, with a flurry of legal action in the latest indictment of Donald Trump, just days after being formally charged for his alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election results. The former president spent the weekend testing the limits of the judge assigned to the case. During Thursday's arraignment, the magistrate judge warned Trump against interfering in the case, telling him that his bond could be revoked if he tried to influence a juror, threaten or bribe a witness, or retaliate against anyone giving information to prosecutors. Despite telling the judge that he understood her warning, just one day later, the former president posted on his social media site, quote, "If you go after me, I'm coming after you." That message set off alarm bells within the Justice Department, where special counsel Jack Smith quickly asked a judge to impose a protective order in the case to block Trump from sharing evidence turned over to his defense team on social media. The DOJ's request stated, quote, "If the defendant were to begin issuing public posts using details or, for example, grand jury transcripts obtained in discovery here, it could have a harmful, chilling effect on witnesses or adversely affect the fair administration of justice in this case." In response, Judge Tanya Chutkan gave Trump's legal team until 5 o'clock this afternoon to respond to the DOJ's request. The former president's lawyers then, in turn, asked for a 3-day extension. Here we go, something that the Justice Department balked at. In a response filing, Smith wrote, quote, "Rather than spend time complying with the court's order, the defendant drafted a filing as to why he did not have time to review and consider the 5-page proposed protective order." The judge concurred with prosecutors and shot down Trump's request to have today's deadline pushed back. While all this was going on, the former president continued to go after those involved in the case over the weekend, despite being warned not to do so. His targets included former Vice President Mike Pence, who is a potential witness for prosecutors. Also, Judge Chutkan herself, and of course, Jack Smith, both on social media and during a speech in Alabama.
Deranged Jack Smith. Doesn't he look deranged? You see the picture with the purple robe? He's a deranged human being. We're getting stronger by the day. Somebody said, you should treat him nicer. Maybe he'd be nice. Let me tell you, this guy is a lost soul, bad guy.
So, Chuck Rosenberg, I just keep going back to everything I've ever seen regarding proceedings before federal judges and federal courts. And, you know, we talk about equal justice under the law. Yes, Donald Trump has actually been indicted for trying to overthrow a presidential election. But, Chuck, I just, again, in my limited experience, but, you know, being around this a good bit, I've just never known of a federal judge that would allow a defendant to publicly threaten a prosecutor, stir up death threats against a prosecutor, let alone question the integrity of the court itself, the federal judge itself. I'm wondering, I mean, equal justice under the law, are we carving out a special exception for Donald Trump here if his bail is not revoked?
Yeah, I hope not, Joe, and I don't think so. I think the judge is handling this properly for now so far, right? She's being patient and firm, and she's laying down clear rules. In other words, for instance, minor point, she didn't give Mr. Trump's lawyers more time to argue a frivolous motion. She's requiring their response today. I've seen judges do something like this. They're patient to a point, and then they're no longer patient. And this is reasons sort of number 37, 38, and 39 why you don't want to be Mr. Trump's lawyers, because you're forced over and over again to say things that are nonsense and to take positions in court that are frivolous. And a little context here might be helpful. When the government's asking for a protective order, that is not an unusual ask. The government is about to provide reams of information and data, some of it quite sensitive, to the defense team as part of the discovery process. And if the defense misuses that stuff, if Mr. Trump starts posting the names of witnesses and what they say on social media, there are real consequences to that. Not just that witnesses could be intimidated or harassed or threatened, but potentially worse. And so I think the judge is watching this very carefully, handling it appropriately. And if you push her too far, there will be consequences for Mr. Trump and his lawyers, as there ought to be.
Well, I mean, there certainly should be, Sam Stein, but you have a prosecutor being threatened by Donald Trump online and in a speech. He's called deranged. I'm coming after you. He calls a federal judge biased. He attacks a witness in the case, trying to intimidate the witness. And listen, let me just help everybody that's involved in this case if they can't figure it out. Donald Trump was trying to get the names, or people around Donald Trump were trying to get the names of FBI agents out that searched his Mar-a-Lago home, desperately trying to get them out so they would be threatened. We now have the same thing that will happen here. They give Donald Trump information. Maybe he doesn't post it on social media, but he gives it to Steve Bannon or Roger Stone or somebody else, and they put the names out. I mean, it seems to me that this is going to have to be a tough protective order, and Donald Trump's going to have to be told he's going to jail if the terms are, bail's revoked, if the terms are violated, because we all know the terms are going to be violated.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Chuck obviously knows better than me. He's more seasoned in this field than I am. I do happen to imagine, I have to imagine that we are in unique circumstances here. It's probably unprecedented that a high-profile defendant in this case makes such overt threats against the prosecutor in such a public forum. I think in any other case, if a client did something like this, you would see a harsh rebuke from the judge. Patience, I suppose, is helpful here in the long run. But, Joe, I'm with you. It's hard to see how this is tenable at all. I mean, look, if you look at it, putting aside the legal stuff, you look at the political stuff, Trump's, almost the entire reason for his campaign at this juncture is he's going to fight his prosecution. He's running on a platform that he is being unfairly persecuted and unfairly prosecuted here. And so he has to be out there publicly railing against Jack Smith, railing against Mike Pence, who almost undoubtedly will be a witness in this trial. Trump's own lawyer has said he wants to call Mike Pence as a witness. It's compelling him, if not for his personality, it's compelling him also to take these steps that are incredibly radical for a defendant to take. And it's only a matter of time before the judge has to call his bluff, right? I mean, this is not going to stop. He's not going to rein it in because he has to campaign with this posture. And once the judge calls his bluff, who knows what the consequences of that are, politically speaking.